Faith, visualizing and believing in the attainment of desire. Dear Luna, before you were ever conceived, before I ever held you in my arms, before I even knew your name, I began imagining you. When I first read this chapter in 2015, I already understood faith as believing, even when the evidence could not yet be seen. But Napoleon Hill explained it in a way that stayed with me. At that time, becoming a mother was one of my deepest desires. In the years that followed, your dad and I rested, sought medical help, and eventually went to a fertility specialist. Still, pregnancy did not happen. There were moments when I almost gave up. But this chapter taught me to do more than wish. I began visualizing myself as a mother. I imagined holding a baby. I imagined breastfeeding my child. I tried to feel what it would be like if that prayer had already been answered. I held on to that picture in my heart. Then, in 2022, I became pregnant with you. Now, as I reread this chapter, I understand why it never left me. I cannot say that visualization alone caused my pregnancy, but I do believe this chapter changed the way I prayed, hoped, and held on to the desire to become your mother. Hill begins with a fascinating statement. He says that faith is the head chemist of the mind. When faith is blended with thought, the subconscious mind immediately picks up that thought, translates it into its spiritual equivalent, and transmits it to what he calls infinite intelligence, much like prayer. To me, that points to God. Faith is not passive. It does not remain just an idea. According to Hill, faith carries our thoughts beyond the conscious mind, where they begin working in ways we cannot yet see. Then, Hill explains something that changed my understanding. Faith is not something we are simply born with. Faith is a state of mind that can be developed. How? By giving repeated instructions to the subconscious mind. That means the thoughts we repeatedly think, the words we repeatedly say, the pictures we repeatedly imagine, slowly become accepted as truth by the subconscious mind. Hill gives a surprising example. He explains that people do not become criminals overnight. At first, they reject crime. Then repeated exposure makes it familiar. Eventually, what once felt wrong begins to feel normal. His point is not really about crime. It is about repetition. Whatever enters the mind repeatedly eventually begins to shape it. If repeated negative influences can change a person's life, then repeated positive influences can build faith. That made me stop and ask myself a difficult question. What thoughts am I rehearsing every day? Am I constantly telling myself I am not good enough? That nothing will ever change? That my dreams are impossible? Because if those thoughts are repeated often enough, my subconscious may begin accepting them as truth. Hill then writes one of the most memorable lines in this section. All thoughts that have been emotionalized and mixed with faith begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent. Notice that he does not simply say thoughts. He says thoughts mixed with emotion. Emotion gives thought its power. Faith gives it direction. But Hill also offers a warning. The subconscious mind does not only respond to positive thoughts, it responds just as readily to fear, doubt, worry, and discouragement. Negative thoughts, when repeated often enough, can also shape our lives. That does not mean every hardship happens because we thought negatively. Life is more complex than that. But it does remind us to be careful about what we repeatedly feed our minds. Then comes the sentence that stayed with me all these years. Hill says that when speaking to your subconscious mind, conduct yourself just as you would if you were already in possession of the thing you are demanding. At first, that sounds impossible, but I do not think he is asking us to pretend. I think he is asking us to become the person we are praying to become before the evidence arrives. Finally, Hill reminds us of something I needed to hear then, and something I still need to remember today. Perfection comes through practice. It cannot come by merely reading instructions. That sentence describes exactly why I am making these videos. I am not recording them because I have mastered these lessons. I am recording them because I do not want to forget them. I want to practice them. One page at a time. One day at a time. Dear Luna, I hope you will remember that faith is not waiting until everything makes sense. Faith is choosing hope before certainty arrives. It is praying before the answer comes. It is taking one more step when you cannot yet see the whole path. years before I ever held you in my arms. I first held you in my imagination, years before I called you my daughter. I whispered prayers only God could hear, and years before you became part of my reality, you had already become part of my faith. Every time I return to this chapter, I am reminded that some of life's greatest miracles begin long before our eyes can see them.